A silent night in the Indian Ocean suddenly turned into a moment that shook the entire world. Deep under the dark blue waters, something deadly moved quietly. No explosions were heard above the surface, and no warning signals appeared yet within seconds. One of Iran's most advanced warships disappeared into the ocean, with more than 100 Iranian sailors still on board. The sea looked calm from above, but beneath it, history had just changed. Only 24 hours earlier, that same warship had been welcomed in India with respect and ceremony. Flags were raised, smiles were exchanged, and the visit was described as a symbol of friendship and diplomacy. Sailors proudly stood on the deck as the ship prepared to leave Indian waters and return home, and no one imagined that the journey back would end in complete silence at the bottom of the ocean. As the warship sailed through the Indian Ocean near the waters of Sri Lanka, an invisible hunter was already watching. Hidden thousands of meters below the surface, a nuclear submarine silently followed its target like a ghost moving through darkness. The sailors above had no idea that they were being tracked. Suddenly, a torpedo cut through the water at incredible speed. In the deep ocean, there are no loud explosions that people on land can hear, and no dramatic warning sirens that reach the sky. Everything happens quietly and brutally fast. Within seconds, the torpedo struck the Iranian warship with devastating force. Steel tore apart, alarms rang through the corridors of the ship, and the massive vessel began sinking rapidly. Sailors rushed to respond, but the attack had been designed to give them almost no time to react. In a matter of moments, more than 100 lives were trapped inside a sinking fortress of steel. Above the water, the ocean looked strangely peaceful at first, but slowly the surface began to reveal the truth. A dark layer of oil spread across the sea, and pieces of broken metal floated upward from the depths. When Sri Lankan naval forces reached the area hours later, the scene they encountered was chilling. The sea was covered with debris and black oil stretching across the water like a shadow. Among the wreckage were the bodies of sailors who had only hours earlier been alive and preparing for a long journey home. Reports later suggested that out of around 180 crew members, only a small number were rescued alive, while dozens remained missing somewhere beneath the ocean. For many families in Iran, the Indian Ocean had suddenly become a watery grave for their sons, brothers, and fathers. But the tragedy quickly became something much larger than a naval disaster. Defense reports began revealing that the strike had likely been carried out by an American Virginia-class nuclear submarine, none of the most advanced underwater weapon systems in the world. The attack was executed with such precision and silence that military analysts described it as a silent kill. Some officials in the United States reportedly considered the operation one of the most significant naval strikes in decades, even comparing its importance to major attacks seen after the Second World War. However, across many parts of the world, the reaction was very different. Critics argued that the ship had not been engaged in an active battle and had just returned from a diplomatic visit, making the attack look less like a military necessity and more like a dangerous signal. The timing made the situation even more explosive, because tensions in the Middle East were already rising. Just days earlier, tragic incidents had created anger and mourning inside Iran, and the country's leadership was already facing pressure from its people. Streets in Tehran were filled with grief and rage, and emotions were running high across the nation. When news spread that a major Iranian warship had been destroyed in international waters, that anger intensified even further. Inside Iran, powerful voices began demanding retaliation, calling the sinking of the ship not just a military strike, but an attack on national pride. For groups like the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the incident was viewed as humiliation, and history has shown that when pride politics and military power collide, the consequences rarely remain limited to one place.